I kind of don't want to advance that. I kind of like that. You know, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was apprehensive when I was offered this opportunity to speak at this meeting because I'm clearly the outlier here. When I explained the jukebox selection process to my wife last night through text, she said, "So you're kind of expecting a 0, right?" I said, "I kind of am." But that's before I knew I had a personal cheerleader in Dr. Johnson. So, apathy is a tough one. Apathy is something that we deal with all the time, right? Let's talk about how to overcome it. A typical employee, when they first become part of your business, they've interviewed for it, they want it, they're usually not apathetic. I used the example when I was pitching this, that first year of marriage, I didn't need to be motivated. The first year of vet school, I didn't need to be motivated. I had spent the 8 years previous to get to that point where I could make it to vet school. Now, I will acknowledge that I do think when you take over teams that have been there a while, there's every likelihood that you've got some apathy going on within that team. What I want to visit with is how do we overcome that? And then also, how do we keep that employee that first comes with us, how do we keep them in that situation where they're excited to be there? So I'm going to give you a demonstration, an illustration of something that I've used for 20 years to illustrate this. So this whole apathy thing is certainly not new to me. And to be honest with you, when I get brought in to help groups, it's usually the majority or a large percent of the team I'm working with is in the apathy or anger stage. And that's something we've got to overcome. So everybody that comes to a new job has got a certain level of energy, and it's our responsibility to tap into that energy. And if we don't tap into that energy, it will get directed elsewhere. So let me give you a demonstration of what's called the spiral of despair. Again, I've been using this for 20 years. When we first enter a situation where we want to be there, we're in a situation of hope. We are energized. We're engaged. Do you guys know how I define an engaged person? The person I want to clone. It's the person that I want more of, and I'm willing to bet within your team when I said that description of it's the person that I want to clone, somebody came to mind. They're in the hope category. They're the people that's where we want to stay. They're committed, and they want to belong. They want to contribute. The key is, can we keep them there? Because if we don't, and they become frustrated that this isn't what I thought it would be, I'm not being utilized in the manner that I thought I would be utilized in. They're not taking advantage of what I feel like are my best attributes. We will get frustrated. We will get confused. And we'll begin to feel forgotten or powerless. And where I have seen this play out more often than not is the time that I was at the veterinary college when I watched those first years enter the door that were so excited, and I just started watching them spiral. We can get them out of the despair category. We have to figure out, why are they frustrated? Why are they confused? Why do they feel forgotten? We're going to bounce them right back into hope. We're going to eliminate the aspects that we're impacting, because they're not going to stay in the despair situation long. They're going to jump to apathy. And apathy is where we feel indifferent. We feel alienated. We start to tune out. These are the people that show up to meetings late, if they show up at all. If you meet them in the hallway and ask them how they're doing, they will give you a one-word response, and that's fine. And they'll say it with about that much enthusiasm, and usually they're looking down at the floor when they say it. Accidents occur within the workplace because they're just not paying attention. They're not purposeful, but it's because they're tuned out. We got to bump them back into despair and then bump them back into hope, because they're not going to stay in apathy either. They're going to head for anger. And anger is where the individual feels rejected, feels worthless. They feel like they're taken for granted, and there's a tremendous level of stress within the team. This is where absenteeism occurs, and employee turnover is pretty high. I've had people in teams that I managed within the college that were firmly in the anger category. I'm not proud of that, but I let them get there. I had one individual that once that individual accumulated enough sick time and vacation time that it totaled 1 day, he was gone. He had a deleterious effect on the people that were there, but he wanted to get out of there. So what do we do? How do we eliminate this spiral of despair, which I promise you is real? And it's real not just in a professional standpoint, but I've seen it impact a lot of people personally also in their situation that they're in, that they go from hope to despair to apathy to anger. So how do we deal with it? I've said previously, every interaction is an opportunity. You have the chance as the supervisor, especially with new employees, you can move that relationship forward, you can stall it, or you're going to damage it. I learned this from the current dean at the University of Illinois, the person that I reported to before I retired. I would go to his office and I would say something to the extent of, I asked someone to assist me with this and they turned me down. How do I go about getting them to help me? And the line that the dean would say to me is, "You may not be aware of." And I tried to pay attention to the dean all the time, but when he said the line of, "You may not be aware of," 99% of the time he's right, I wasn't. And then he would tell me a backstory that in terms of what was impacting that person. I kept it private, of course, but once I knew that backstory, then I knew the issues as to why maybe they were spiraling down. And what could I do with that? And a lot of times it wasn't professional, it was personal. That backstory impacts, you know the saying, don't bring home to work and don't take work home? It's impossible not to fully do that, right? So we've got situations where we have to help people because of their backstory to keep them out of the spiral of despair. Sometimes that spiral of despair is strictly because I don't have the competency that you think I do to accomplish what you need me to accomplish. So we need to look at it, is it competency? Is it knowledge that we need to provide? Is it a skill set that we need to provide? Is it sometimes as simple as encouragement or standing beside them that we need to provide? Clarity, do they understand the mission? Do they understand what the expectations really are? Or when I ask them, are they just saying they understand, but they don't really understand? And then coaching. And coaching is getting beside the person. The single best thing you can do, I think, is to build their confidence. A lot of times we will spiral because we don't have the confidence that we can do it. And we ask ourselves, can we do it? And the answer is no. Then unfortunately, a lot of times our response is, then why even try? Within any group, there's a group that they're the influential ones. They're the ones that everybody looks to kind of get the nod as to how do we respond. When you have an entire group or a big percentage of a group that is demonstrating apathy, I would really encourage you to focus on who are the leaders of that group. And it may not be the leaders by a title. It may just be the ones that they're the influential ones. And they're the ones a lot of times that you really need to focus on. Find out what their backstory is. Spend time with them and they will impact the entire group. I really believe this one. Every employee deserves a manager that believes in them. And you need to express that to them. And again, this takes time, this takes the interaction, but this is, I think, your commitment as a leader. The individuals that I reported to, when they were correcting me, and I got corrected, It was always inside of an office, always one-on-one, and I was fortunate that it never got back to me that an individual had expressed to somebody else that they were disappointed in me. It was just expressed with me. And so I could deal with that. And then I think it's important when people are doing amazing work, acknowledge that. Because if I'm not being acknowledged, I'm going to step back maybe and start down that spiral of despair because my attitude is, I'm doing it and nobody noticed. And then the question is, was the acknowledgement effective? And the answer to that is, who did they tell? And if they told their family, if they told others, your acknowledgement was successful. Keep people out of the spiral of despair. Turn it back over to Oliver.